remind the public that the meetings are being recorded and made available upon request. This moment in our schedule, it's time for anyone in the group that wishes to speak to the board. If you would make yourself way to the podium and remember the 3-minute rule. Anyone here wishing to have that opportunity? Seeing none, hearing none, we move now to the Chancellor's update.
Thank you, Mr. Towers. The only thing I wanted to mention was that Community College Association, the Texas Trustees Conference was held this past weekend, and Ms. Coley attended with me, and we had I think a great workshop. I've been to a lot of workshops. I'm involved with a lot of workshops and organizations all over the world, really, especially with the military. But I can tell you that this was one of I thought, the most informative, most inclusive workshops that I have attended. And because of that, and I understand from talking to some of the other CEOs who were there, that it's usually that inclusive. They've gotten a little bit more with the Board of Trustees Institute, which is now coupled with them. So one of the things I had talked to the deputies about yesterday, or maybe it was Friday, was that I want them to consider attending next year, and I would really encourage board members to attend. It was really, really worth the time. So having said that, Ms. Coley, would you like to, you have anything to say?
Well, I really found it interesting, informative, and just about reminding me what my role is as a trustee, refresher. It was also a great opportunity, as Rex has been telling me for years. It's an opportunity to meet people from other locations, which was, because Jim is so well known, it was easy. People were coming to us to say hello, and so it was very nice. And I too would encourage everyone, all of us, all the trustees and deputies to attend the next one. It was extremely well organized. Time moved along. There were no delays in starting of presentations. It moved along. It was worth the day and a half of being there. So
it was very engaging.
Yeah, absolutely.
You didn't have to just sit and listen. There were presentations were made, but they were engaging presentations, and then you would break into other kinds of groups and you would talk about things and share with other institutions. I just thought it was well done. It was informative. It was engaging, and I just really was glad to be there. So.
And I would just add that did two things. It introduced me to some new things, but also made me very proud of what we have here and what our professionals have created in our environment. There was a presentation on what lessons learned from COVID, and I told Jim that our deputies should be there presenting, probably more qualified than the people that were presenting. Right. And also, we are really blessed to have a leader that loves what he does, loves people, can work with anyone. I found shadowing him around was so easy. People were very warm and coming to our table, like I said before, to say hello to him. So I had not experienced this with Jim before. And so it was a great opportunity for us too.
Yeah, and I'll echo what she said about being proud of what we have here and what we've done. They were proud of the fact that they had a 6-phase plan for reopening their institutions. Yeah. And Dr. Carter, how we did that way before the state could even do it. Yep. They were proud of the fact that they were embarking on 8-week courses. I shared this with Dr. Garrett yesterday on the phone on Sunday, I guess, or Monday. They were so proud of the fact that now they can start 8-week classes, and how they were going to roll those out. And I said to Ms. Coley, I said, we've been doing that since 1976. What are we talking about here? And sure enough, but back then we had a pushback from faculty. They had a pushback, as they explained, from faculty that you couldn't get the amount of knowledge in a course in 8 weeks that you could get in 16 weeks, and so there was this pushback. Well, now they're realizing that maybe that wasn't a true statement. So now it's the next best thing since double bubble and spats, you know. So I guess for a lot of things, it was a reaffirmation, but a lot of things, it was something new to engage for us to look at going forward. So anyway, thank you for allowing us to attend.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Was there a difference in the approach that we got from Saks and what they were presenting as far as board relationship with the administration?
There was, when at first, I thought it was I thought this is too intrusive. This is not what the board should be doing. It was almost as if they were suggesting to the board that they get involved in day-to-day operations without having said that, but the way they were approaching it. But the more I listened and the more the days went on, I realized they were really trying to explain that the board should maybe have a knowledge of the things we do. Now, I looked back at that and I thought, well, wait a minute. We do those things. They don't do those things. Most of them don't have a board workshop a week before they have a board meeting. Okay, that's number one. So, and I explained to a lot of my colleagues that, well, what I do is I have different departments come to the board workshop. We don't just talk about things we're going to expend money or we're going to do that, but we talk about the programs and we talk about past, present, and future with our programs. And I try to cover 2 of those, 20 academic departments and then some other departments at every board meeting. So we keep this board informed. It was obvious that most of those board members and the ones I talked to, they had no knowledge. They weren't shared. That information wasn't shared with them. And we try to keep it transparent here. We try to keep every one of you on top of everything we can. And I also told them that, you know, a board member who comes to a meeting once a month, in most of their cases, or in our case, twice a month, there's just no way that you could understand how to do all the nuances of this institution. I've been here a long time, and I don't know all of that. So it takes all of us to make that work. But the one thing was sharing, communications and sharing. I think we do a really good job of that. And it was obvious that, and then in talking to some of them, that isn't what they do. So they don't share.
When they were talking about not having but one meeting, and that's the actual board meeting, one of them shared with us when we broke out in groups that they meet, when their meeting exceeds an hour and a half, people start doing this. The Board of Trustees, they only want to give you 1.5 hours. They also, one of them that we really connected with, talked about some of the board members say that it's not convenient for them to come to a meeting. So they miss a lot of meetings. They come periodically. And that concept, I don't know about for you other trustees, but that concept escapes me. If I was not planning to attend every meeting, I wouldn't be here. So that was frustrating for the chancellor of that college and the board member that he brought with him, that they only, according to them, the the hour and a half was about as much time as they were willing to give. So I don't understand
Yeah, they were amazed that you all would come twice a month, 1 week apart. They were amazed that you would sit here and we would go through what we have to do to run the college, and then to explain some of the things, how we run the college in terms of sharing with you on these different departments. But they were really surprised by that. And then they said, but your board meeting only lasts an hour? I said, well, we do everything at the workshop for the most part. And I said, one of the things I don't do is I don't take to my board things that I would want them to vote no to. That is counterproductive. Why would I do that? If I don't want to do it and the staff doesn't want to do it, why would I take it to the board? A lot of them do that. It just amazes me. So anyway.
I can't gather the understanding why someone would want to go through the effort to getting support of the community to get elected to the Board of Trustees and then not go. Because that myself would say, resign and let somebody else do it that wants to actually perform.
And that was talked about.
Thank you, Chancellor and Ms. Coley, and the rest of you for participating. When did we ever have an hour board meeting? We haven't done that in a long time.
We have.
Not a long time, not a long time.
Don't look at your watch.
Next items on the agenda are reports and updates, starting with Dr. Foskey. Please.
Good afternoon. I'd like to introduce you to our two department chairs that are doing back-to-back presentations. First is Dr. Andrea Foskett. She taught at CTC, and then 2 years ago, she became the co-chair for the Science and Ag Department. And then last year, she took over as the full-time chair of the department. So she is followed by Tammy Phillips, who just took, again, she taught at CTC, and then she took on the role of department chair, 2 weeks ago? So, again, we're very fortunate to have really competent and wonderful department chairs. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Foskett, for your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Ady. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andrea Foskett. I am the chair of the Department of Science and Agriculture, and I really want to thank you for this opportunity to share a quick update regarding my department with you. I've put together a few slides just to kind of give you an overview of our department. So I'm going to start with that to kind of tell you what our disciplines are, the different disciplines that we offer. Let me go ahead and get this going. Okay. So we're going to talk first about the different disciplines and the degrees and how many different faculty we have and the courses that we offer. And then from there, we're going to dive off into some enrollment numbers to give you a comparison between what those numbers look like pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic. So in the Department of Science and Agriculture, of course, we're going to break this down. All of our science programs, you know what, let me go ahead and get this pointer going. Our science programs, we've got several different certificates, degrees right there. Our Associates of Science in Organismal Biology, Human Biology, Chemistry, Environmental Science, and Geology. We've got about 10 full-time faculty, quite a few adjunct faculty, about 20 or so, and we're still growing. A lot of those faculty teach either face-to-face classes, but a lot of them also teach our online, our distance learning classes. We also have 6 science associates, and that's fairly new for about 2 years or so. So those are our lab instructors. They facilitate lab content. So all of our science courses are typically a lecture and a lab class combined. So all of the lecture components are taught by the full-time faculty, but the lab aspects of it are taught by or facilitated by our science associates. So we've got about 28 different courses that we offer, and these are our major disciplines in science: biology, chemistry, environmental, geology, and physics. On the agriculture end of things, there's several different programs, degrees, and certificates that we offer. Our associate's science degree in agricultural science, that's a very popular degree. We also have several applied sciences programs, as well as certificates of completion. The way that the certificates are designed is that they are stackable certificates, so you could start with, say, something in production technology or ag industries, and then kind of add other certificates on top of it, and then you end up with an Associate of Science degree in ag science. So it's something that is designed for whatever the needs and interests of the student might be, to kind of advance whatever their goals might be. And the entire ag program, we only have one full-time faculty, and he is Mr. Keaton Eric. He's our ag coordinator. So he does a lot for the ag program. We are very lucky, though. We've started hiring a lot of our adjunct faculty. So there's it's kind of sometimes tough to get specialized faculty to teach a lot of these classes. And as you can kind of see here, we do offer about 28 different courses. This is a pretty expansive program in agriculture and agricultural health, a lot of equine sciences, management, viticulture, as well as horticulture classes. So that's quite a robust program that we're hoping to kind of keep expanding on, and hopefully with a lot more faculty that would serve our needs. I want to give a shout out to Mr. Keaton Eric, and you kind of see him right there. He received our Certificate of Faculty Recognition in September of 2020, and he is a very dedicated individual who has done a lot to expand the ag program and is continuing to do so every single day. I already talked to you all a little bit about the wide variety of courses that we offer in the ag program. We want to expand a little bit on our viticulture program. To this end, we hired a new a horticulture/viticulture adjunct faculty, and he is extremely excited. We are starting to offer, just this semester, we are offering Viticulture 1, and then we hope to be able to offer Viticulture Part 2 in the next semester, and hopefully we will see a need for those programs, and maybe even explore starting a new viticulture program, but that's just something that we're exploring right now. The horticulture program, that's another big aspect of the ag program. We have several faculty that we have in mind, and we hiring several new adjunct faculty as well. And we really hope to be able to expand our horticulture classes. There's several specialized classes that require individuals with credentials that are qualified to teach those classes. And so we would like to start offering more frequently. Classes in turfgrass, home gardening, all of these are very interesting classes that students take an interest to. Landscape design, park management, and so on, okay? So that's an overview of the Science and Agriculture program and the courses that we offer. So I wanted to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about our enrollments. And what I've done here is present data from different semesters. And so if you kind of look at how this is broken down, this particular chart, on the x-axis, basically, this is broken down by discipline, biology, chem, environmental geology, and physics, as well as our ag classes. And this is the number of students that we've had. And so I broke this down into pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic. Our pre-pandemic included fall 2019, which is that blue graph right there, and then also the spring 2020, which was the orange bar. Now, if you all might recall, spring 2020 is where we started off. This was pre-pandemic, that when we started off the semester, it was all face-to-face classes, and things were somewhat normal back then. And then halfway through that semester, during spring break, things transitioned very, very quickly to an online or a virtual format. So I'm including this spring 2020 in the pre-pandemic because our numbers were before the pandemic hit. And I'm comparing that against all of my post-pandemic semesters. And so in the gray, if you will, that's going to be our fall 2020 enrollments. The yellow bar, that's going to be the spring 2021 enrollments. And I've also thrown in the light blue bar, and that is basically our current semester, fall 2021. So I want to quickly mention that you can see the asterisks there against all of your light blue bars, and that's because this is kind of work in progress. There's a lot of there's a lot of start dates that have not yet been represented. So that includes our August start date and our September start dates, but we still have October and so on and so forth. So it's not a complete picture of what our fall 2021 enrollment should look like. So I just want to point out a few things. Typically, our fall enrollments are a little higher in the science department compared to spring enrollments. So what I'm going to do for the purpose of this discussion is to compare fall 2019 with fall 2020 and then do the same for spring. So if you I'm just going to choose one discipline here, biology. If you look at the dark blue bar, that's fall 2019 before the pandemic hit, Compare that with the gray bar, which is the fall 2020 numbers. That's after the pandemic. And just looking at this one discipline, biology, those numbers are not terribly bad. I mean, they're very comparable in terms of enrollments. You can do the same for our spring comparisons. So pre-pandemic is the orange bar. The yellow bar would be the post-pandemic. In fact, there are certain disciplines where you're going to see slightly higher numbers post-pandemic. And in some cases, that's just because we kind of balance that by offering more online classes, so that's why you're seeing a slightly higher number. But there are other disciplines, as you can see here, where that may not be the case. If you kind of look at, say, chemistry, for example, those numbers are a little lower pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic. Okay. I want to quickly mention a little bit about ag there. You're actually seeing an increase in the enrollments, and that's because we've had the opportunity to hire more adjunct faculty, which means offering more classes, and that's why our enrollments are a little higher. And also we've expanded on our online classes as well. So I think we've kind of looked at these numbers and made adjustments as necessary to offset enrollment dips in certain areas. So that's an overview of our TCENT and our TDLRN enrollments per discipline within the science and ag department. This next slide is going to give you a worldwide view of what the science and ag department did in terms of enrollment numbers. And here I have omitted our current semester, the fall 2021 semester, because I want to present some percentages, and it would not be accurate to present our fall 2021 numbers right now because there's still a lot of different classes that are yet to start. So again, it's the same concept of comparing pre-pandemic fall 2019 versus and spring 2020 versus our post-pandemic enrollments fall 2020 and spring 2021. So the blue bar gives you just the enrollment numbers for TCENT. So a lot of this is going to be our face-to-face classes prior to the pandemic, switched over to synchronous virtual format after the pandemic. Comparing that against the orange tracing right there, and that's going to be all of the distance learning classes. Again, same thing, pre versus post-pandemic. All of the remote sites, continental sites, and other CTC locations would be the gray bar. And then a sum total of all of these different enrollments per semester is what you see on that tracing on the top, the yellow bar on the top, okay? And so again, I'm going to compare fall enrollments with each other. So pre-pandemic, fall 2019, if you just kind of look at the total enrollments, worldwide enrollments, comparing that number up there that was before the pandemic versus fall 2020, this is after the pandemic, that's about a 7.7% decrease in enrollments. Overall, worldwide, not splitting it into any of these individual categories. And then if you do the same for the spring numbers, spring 2020, that's pre-pandemic, compare that against spring 2021, post-pandemic, that's about a 10.8% decrease in enrollments if you're looking at the spring enrollments. And again, this is total enrollments. So that's a quick run-through of our enrollments and where we stand pre- and post-pandemic. What I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about was we have a lot of high school students. We have a lot of early college high school students as well as STEM students that are interested in science classes. And I wanted to show you what this looks like. So on my screen here, it looks like those first two columns. I think that looks green. I'm not sure if that's what it looks like to you all, but these are your pre-pandemic numbers versus post-pandemic enrollments would be in orange. If you kind of compare the total numbers, I've broken it down by discipline, but also if you kind of just look at the total numbers, there's not in fact, those numbers have grown to a certain extent as far as ECHS enrollments go. Our fall 2021 numbers, they're we're still kind of working on getting those raw numbers together, but it's around 188 or so, 190, kind of in that range. If you look at the STEM numbers, again, we are growing in terms of our STEM enrollments. There's a lot of students who are interested in a lot of the advanced science classes, the chemistry classes, the anatomy and physiology, the microbiology. So there's a lot of students interested, STEM students that are interested. In fact, projected numbers for spring 2022, that's the next semester, is that those numbers for STEM especially are going to keep growing. So we're very excited about that. And the last piece of information I wanted to discuss with you is a comparison, a side-by-side comparison of two of our instructional formats. Of course, we're all familiar with the traditional face-to-face lecture lab format, which is what we've all been used to before the pandemic. But then, when the pandemic hit, we had to transition to a virtual format. And so we introduced this new instructional format, the CTC did, and this was implemented across all the departments. This is the synchronous virtual format. There were quite a few challenges with this, especially from the lab perspective, because it was challenging to make sure that we covered all of the learning objectives for lab, but not doing it in a face-to-face setting, but still being able to reach out and interact with our students in a virtual setting. So I wanted to show you some comparisons or some data on what this looks like and how student performance kind of worked out. So the numbers I'm presenting here is from one of our science courses, Anatomy and Physiology 1, and this was actually this past semester, the summer 2021 semester, where we taught this ANP1 class as a 10-week class, but in two different formats. So one set of students did the traditional lecture lab, and the other set of students did the synchronous virtual lecture lab. We tried to standardize it. The lecture instructor was the same for both groups of students. The lab instructor was different. Our total numbers, if you look at our face-to-face class, we started with 26. Our SVL class, we started with 37. So if you compare our numbers, the percentage of students that dropped or completed really did not change, whether you're referring to the face-to-face or the SVL classes. But what stood out was this: the number of students that benefited more and had a higher grade, like the number of A's that we had in our face-to-face class was a lot higher than what we saw in our synchronous virtual class. And likewise, if you look at those numbers, they kind of flipped around for the percentage that actually got an F. So a higher number got an F in the SVL class compared to the face-to-face class. There are a lot of students that love the face-to-face format, but then there are a lot of students that also like the flexibility of a synchronous virtual format. It just really depends on the type of learners that we have and what their situations may be. But we're starting to see a trend where I think the face-to-face interaction, getting them together in the same classroom with peers and hands-on support from an instructor is valuable. Again, this is very preliminary data, and we'd be excited to kind of explore this further. I think that that wraps up my discussion of the Science and Ag department. Are there any questions for me? Okay.
Well,
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
Scully.
There's no question. I think most people would agree that the face-to-face has been most successful. But will you be able to offer both in the future for students?
So currently, we are offering majority face-to-face lecture lab, and a small portion of our classes are SVL. A lot of our ACGM guidelines, when you look at the objectives that need to be met for our science classes, especially for the lab, a lot of those classes specify hands-on skills. So by doing an SVL class, we are meeting some of those objectives, but we're not completely meeting those objectives. So we've got to be very careful about picking and choosing certain science classes that might work in an SVL format but a good majority of the classes, we do need that technical, like that actual face-to-face interaction.
Of course. And it was like the first couple of slides, you
me go
mentioned that you were having trouble getting, keep going.
Go back, probably here.
There were a number, maybe it's this part or the one before. You just had one, no, it's him that I don't want to get.
It's him, okay. Mr. Eric, it is.
You had said something about just having, you wanted to add some additional courses, but you were having difficulty finding adjunct professors in those fields.
Yes, qualified adjunct faculty that have 18 graduate hours of, of experience that qualifies them to be able to teach those classes. And a lot of these classes, some of them are WECM-based classes as well, so it just draws a very, very specific person that meets all of those requirements. And also availability of those individuals to teach those classes over several different semesters. So I think we just need to market better and be able to, network better, try to, draw in more qualified individuals so that we can keep growing in these programs.
And hopefully it's somebody from the community or some persons from the community that can help you to get access to those people that might have those skills.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, going and visiting different,
Yes.
Participating in different outreach programs and in the community and other institutions would get the word around. Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Yeah, we,
Sir?
can tell that we're very proud of Dr. Foskett and what she's been able to do. And as you can see, these department chairmen, and she is one, have a lot more to do than just teach some classes. So their job is a full day every day. And I have one question for you.
Yes,
In the verticulture program and the outlook on that, do you think there's down the road we could have a small vineyard up there where we could?
That sounds very exciting.
That'd be good
and
for the students to learn how to do that.
we do have the space to grow into a program like that. And this is the reason why we wanted to first hire an adjunct or a faculty member who is qualified to teach these classes. So once we offer these classes, then we see what the community interest is in those classes. And then if there is sufficient interest, then it would certainly be something that we would be happy to explore.
I want to thank the Chancellor for reminding us what that is. I didn't know what verticulture was. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you
Foskett.
very much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Phillips?
Mr. Armstrong, can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
We're getting some feedback on your phone.
He's probably out with his cows right now.
Okay, well, my name is Tammy Phillips, and I'm the new department chair for the Communications Department. I did take over, like Dr. Ady said, very recently, so just at the beginning of September is when I had to learn to fill in Will Heath's shoes. So we're going to miss him dearly, but I'm going to do my best to continue on from the great path that he laid before me. Now, included in the Department of Communications is English, speech, developmental studies, I did forget, foreign language, and ESOL, which is English as a second or other language. So please also include in these in this information foreign language, because it is included. Now, I do have some enrollment trends, and I decided to go ahead and start with fall 2020 because, like Dr. Foskett mentioned, there was a major shift in the dynamics of our enrollments because of the pandemic situation. So what I've basically included here are some information, just some general overviews of total enrollment numbers. Now, the F2F, that is face-to-face English classes that were on campus, or actually with fall 2020 and spring 2020, they would have been virtual classes like Dr. Foskett mentioned. So we had a total enrollments of about 697 in the fall compared to this fall, which is currently at 548. Now, it seems to be significantly lower. However, notice the asterisk again. There are continuing enrollments, okay? So we do have a few other classes that are having October start dates, so those numbers may possibly change. Now, if we look at that in comparison to the spring numbers, for the same typical classes, then it is an increase from the spring enrollment. So there are some positives. We're not as strong as we were last fall, but we're stronger than the numbers that we saw in the spring. So there is some growth, and we are seeing a lot of excitement from students just glad to be back in the classroom again. So we're very thrilled about that. Now, in comparison, let me also point out one other thing. Specifically, and I didn't put that on this chart because there just wasn't enough room for all of the specific data, but we are seeing larger number of increases in 1301 basic composition class, a larger number in the face-to-face classes enrollments for this fall than we have seen in the previous spring 21 semester. Now, the online courses, you see that the online courses seem to have dropped, but some of those courses some of those enrollments are taking place in the face-to-face classes. However, an interesting trend that I did notice in the online enrollments, there's an increased interest in taking American Lit classes, which is not something that we offer here on face-to-face, but we're seeing increased enrollments online. So they're serving an interesting aspect of our communications department where they're offering something online, and students are taking advantage of that. So I did notice an interesting trend in not only American Lit, but also increased dual credit enrollment classes, classes that we specifically offer for high schools that they teach at the high schools, but with some of our online professors. Now, with the speech classes, the face-to-face speech classes are seeing some improvements, drastic improvements from last spring when we were virtual. So we've increased from last spring. However, it's not as strong as the fall before. But we are seeing some increased enrollments in basic public speaking and in business and professional speaking. So some increase in not only the face-to-face in those two specific courses, 1315 and 1321, not face-to-face, only face-to-face, but also in the online classes as well. Now, we basically, the communications department is support for the core curriculum. We support the core curriculum by providing basic English classes and some foreign language classes and the developmental and the ESOL classes to get people the foundation that they need. So we don't have a lot of degrees. However, we are very excited about the possibility, we're exploring the possibility of creating a 2-year degree for communications so that students could pursue that as a possible degree plan in the future. So that's something to keep in the back of mind. We are working on that degree possibility. Now, with the face-to-face Spanish classes, one thing that I noticed with the face-to-face Spanish classes, and it's included in here in foreign language, but we primarily teach majority of Spanish here on campus. We also teach some German, but a majority of those numbers are attributed to the Spanish enrollments. The Spanish enrollments for this fall have actually increased about 3 times the number that they were in the previous fall term. So our on-campus face-to-face Spanish classes are increasing dramatically, and we're very excited about that possibility, and we'd like to see it grow even more. The online enrollments, we've had some great online foreign language enrollments, and you see that we're at the highest numbers that we've ever had. We've gone from 254 in fall 2020 to 283 in the spring 2020, and now we're up to 293, and again, that was as of September the 15th, so that's still increasing. So we're seeing our online foreign language department grow substantially, and we're very excited about that. We're seeing lots of increased basic French. There's a continued increase in, or continued interest rather, in beginning Italian, in beginning Russian, which was a surprise to me, but there is a steady continual interest in beginning Russian, compared especially to the last 3 semesters. And we've even had some queries about, can you offer Japanese? So it seems that our online foreign language is really becoming very popular and really making a name for itself, and we're seeing those enrollment trends, and I'd like to see those continue to grow as well. Now, with our developmental studies, we have developmental reading and writing, and we also have our English as a second or other language. Our developmental reading and writing is doing well. They've increased their enrollments dramatically from fall 2020 and definitely over spring 2021. So they're showing very strong increased enrollments. I think those students, these are students who need a little extra help, need a little extra planning in reading and in writing, need some stronger skill sets so that they can be successful in their other academic courses. And so we're seeing lots of students really getting enrolled in these courses to help prepare them for their collegiate careers. So we're really excited about those increases in numbers. Now the online, notice the online has dropped a little bit from last fall. We went from 261 enrollments down to 243 for this fall. But still, compared to the drastic increase in the face-to-face, I think our online enrollment is still continuing to show some strong trends, okay, despite that change. Now, where we are seeing some struggles is with our ESOL program. English as a second language, it seems to be losing some interest, losing some traction. We've only got 4 enrollments for this fall, which we are concerned about, and we're trying to anticipate how we can encourage this development of this program a little bit further. So we've got some ideas in place. We're checking out with some of the local community programs that we can go and try to promote this program, because we know that English as a second or other language is very important to many members of our community, whether they're Spanish speaking or Korean speaking as a native speaker. So we're sending out some feelers to see where we can go and maybe do a little bit of recruitment and offer some of these services. Now, I believe some of this enrollment might be decreasing because of the adult education that is provided. I don't have any proof for that. That's just some speculation on my part. Now, online speaking, English as a second or other language is actually increasing from previous years. There wasn't a lot of significant enrollment. It was very minuscule, just an enrollment here, a couple of enrollments there before fall 2020. However, we are seeing larger numbers of increased enrollments starting with fall 2020 with the online English as a second or other language program. Now, some of our faculty changes, obviously we have lost Dr. Heath and we're going to miss him desperately, but I am his replacement, again, Tammy Phillips. We also have another new full-time hire. We have about 10 full-time staff that are on board with the communications department here on campus. We're excited about the addition of Christina Murphy. She is qualified to teach many different English classes, from Basic Composition 1, Basic Composition 2, the American Lit classes, both 1 and 2, the Brit Lit classes 1 and 2, as well as the World Lit classes 1 and 2. So she has some great qualifications, and we're really excited to have her on board. Now, we did have to say farewell to some other members of our department, in addition to Dr. Heath. We said goodbye to Jane Gibson, who was with our foreign language department for a very long time, and she was an amazing asset as a Spanish teacher, and in addition, I believe she taught French. And she could even speak a little Russian. So she was very, very adept, and it was a great asset to our department. So we're sorry to see her go. She left in May. And then we have Dr. Bloomberg, who is our online manager. She will be retiring this December. So we're going to be looking to replace Dr. Bloomberg. Not that she is replaceable, but we're going to be looking to help celebrate her retirement and wish her all the best in her future retirement. Now, to promote some more of our foreign language, we have a Spanish virtual poetry reading that we're going to be conducting next week. It's actually going to be a virtual event to be safe, given the current circumstances, but it's trying to promote the Spanish language and hopefully encourage some of these, if not students of the Spanish language, maybe some native speakers, or maybe some people who are just interested in learning a foreign language. So this is going to be a virtual event. It's going to be hosted by the library, and it's going to be judged by our Professor Schweitzer. Dr. Schweitzer is going to be judging the competitors, who are going to be reciting a pre-selected Spanish poem, and then there will be some prizes awarded. So the library has been amazing at supporting, trying to outreach for supporting our on-campus Spanish learning. So that's going to be next September the 29th at noon. Okay, so it was an honor to speak before you here today, and it is my great pleasure to be here. But at this point in time, I'd like to see if there are any questions or concerns, things that you needed clarification on.
You can tell Ms. Phillips is jumped in the middle of this very quickly in the last month or so, becoming department chair, and has a full-time job other than teaching her classes. So, and looking at expansion into those other areas, and we thank you for that, Ms. Phillips. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Ms. Merlo.
Marketing effectiveness. Is this a 101 class, Ms. Merlo? Is this a,
Some of it is, definitely.
okay,
I won't charge you for it.
all right.
So really the whole point of this, there's a lot of slides. Freddie Love said, Barb Merlo, you got 14 slides. And I said, I know, but I'm not going to talk very much about most of them. It was more for you guys to see. And I'm going to just kind of explain how we measure things. I'm not going to go into the detail of what the measurements mean. This is my Marketing 101 class. The first thing that has to happen is somebody has to be aware you exist. You're not going to transfer somebody from, I never heard of Central Texas College, to, I'm a student at Central Texas College. There are some things that have to happen in their brain for that to happen. So it's changed over the years. They have a lot of different ways of saying it, but I think this makes the most sense in my presentation because it coincides with different media and different things that we do at each level of the process. So at first, they're gonna be exploring things, then they're gonna start narrowing things down, coming up with what their consideration set is, and then they're gonna act. And by act, it could be as little as going to the website and as much as filling out an application. And comparing what we do with those three things, traditional media is really about exposure. It's not very measurable. We can only measure how many people have an opportunity to see it. That goes for billboards, TV, radio, all those things. When it comes to digital and web, that's more about them showing that they're considering, they're visiting our website, they're staying on our website, maybe they decide to follow us on one of the social media channels. And then finally, the measurement that means the most to driving student enrollment is engagement and application, filling out an application, and then, of course, enrolling. So most of the work that we do is down here, with the exception of some of the things that we do in social media and TargetX. And I'm just going to go through these very quickly just to show you that we do two things. We do things we pay for, and we do things that we don't pay for. Now, we do pay salaries to do them, but we don't pay, like the advertising agency isn't involved in the things that we do to send out media alerts and so forth to the newspapers, magazines, and radio. And that's what this captures. And we do have a service that I can pull reports on. It's very difficult to get a really good read on these because sometimes Central Texas College is used with little lowercase letters, and it doesn't mean the same thing. But just to give you an idea, we do look at these things, and both Bruce and I get a weekly update as we are mentioned in the media. Well, that's weird. Sorry about that. So the paid media, the way that we can measure it, again, is for opportunities for exposure. So what these different reach and frequency values mean, reach is like if there's 100% of the population, you're reaching that percent at this media. The frequency is like, okay, somebody on cable got really tired of seeing our ads because they got to see them nine times. But again, it's an opportunity to see it. How many of you guys go to the bathroom or do something else when a commercial's on TV? There is some of that. So their television was on. Whether or not they were looking at it is a whole other question. Similar with radio, similar with outdoor. But those are the ways that we kind of base our judgment on how well we're doing. These are reach and frequency numbers for a specific demographic. We don't advertise to everyone. We advertise in different media to very specific. So it may be age. It may be, for other things, you can get more in depth. Okay. There we go. This is just some of the other things that we do, and they are absolutely not measurable because these are printed materials that people pick up at outreach events and so forth. And then I don't ever want to leave out the people that really do the most for us, and when you see people say word of mouth, this is where that comes from. We don't have any way to measure it, but I know if I could harness that and make it happen more often, then we would have a lot more students. So, our alumni, our retirements, our employees, the things that we do out in the community to give visibility to CTC, all of those things are worth more than what we can do in the traditional media. So digital media, this is what we do, what we post to our social media outlets, which is Facebook, Instagram. Snapchat is not included in the report because they don't measure it, but also YouTube and LinkedIn. So I wanted to give you a comparison, and it's compared to April and June, but our reach in all of these areas is very cyclical with our fall start, spring start, summer start, and it tends to get bigger and bigger as we get closer to the date. We have lots of people emailing us the week before classes start wanting to get started. We're like, oh, okay. But as you can see, the total audience this is 2 months, was about 81,000 and over 3 million impressions. So people are seeing our stuff, multiple locations, multiple times. Again, we do have, we gain and lose audience all the time. Facebook is the monster in the room. We have way more impressions on Facebook than anything else. That's just kind of the way the world is. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily where our traditional students hang out. and it is much, much more difficult to get followers on some of the things that they're interested in, like Snapchat. And I didn't want to say that we were going to do this because I wanted it to go away. Some of these things I want to go away. I guess we're going to try to figure out TikTok, because it is not going away, ladies and gentlemen, and that is where all of our students are on TikTok. So as far as the paid media, these we can measure with impressions and with clicks for the most part. And this is a very big chart, and I'm not going to go through each of it, but the platforms that we use are the streaming video, which is YouTube, but also now on like YouTube TV or Hulu or Sling, those non-cable and non-network providers. And that is becoming a huge part of our advertising buy. And then display, the little pop-ups that come every time you go to a website or to a digital page. And then also paid search and paid social. And those commercials on YouTube that you can't wait until you can click the skip ad thing. And also the same with streaming audio. So these are, and I really feel like things like streaming audio and YouTube are more similar to billboards in the way people consume them, as in they may or may not pay any attention to what they're looking at. So there's not as much of an engagement there. And of course, we definitely measure and monitor our website traffic. And I can tell you that just like what the two department chairs showed you, some things are down. And our web analytics over the last year have been down. So we kind of almost can predict what enrollment's going to look like based on this. But we did have a jump. And I will tell you when the biggest jump was. It was when we started advertising that we were giving $2,000 away. That was when we got the most engagement with our ads. That was when we got the most applications. That was when people started going to the website. Money does talk. And the application analytics are just the pages that are in the TargetX application structure. So, 101,000 page views of all these different, like there's a login screen, there's a, change my password screen. So various screens that people use when they go to start to fill out an application or to complete one or to check the status. And then of course we have been very much involved in live events on Facebook and also getting that information out on YouTube. We have a virtual info session every month, and we have some people that attend by WebEx. We have additional people that jump on Facebook, and then we record them all and put them on YouTube. So if any of you guys are subscribed to our YouTube, you probably get a lot of notifications because we are doing a lot of virtual events. Then email is the other thing that my folks take care of for the first part of the funnel. So we have an inquiry form on our website. We communicate with those people. Once they apply, we communicate with them. And then once they're enrolled, we do some general communication, but that's where Julie Starkey and her Student Success and Persistence team kind of take over so that they can focus on academic success and not just information. But we do send out some just general information, emails about events that are happening and changes to things like WebAdvisor, right, Cliff? And then, like I said, student success, there we go. So just to give you an example, our inquiries from, and I didn't change the date because I'd prepared this for August. This is actually inquiries for July and August. And it was 406 total, so that many people bothered to go to our website and request information. The interesting thing and not intuitive thing that we learned when we first launched this inquiry form is that a lot of people fill out an inquiry after they fill out an application. And that makes it a little difficult to figure out what we're going to try to get them to do, because normally when somebody inquires, we want them to apply, and then some of them already have. So interesting. I guess they're in a hurry. And then in TargetX, there were about 5,742 applications submitted, and that's worldwide between July 1st and August 31st. One of the reasons that I wanted to narrow it down to this was hoping that we wouldn't get as many of the suspicious apps in the numbers, but just know that there may be some of that in there, and we can't really very well compare things to a year ago. But This does not include any applications that came through Apply Texas, which we have a significant portion. So I think we continue to try to find different ways and different places to get the word out to students. And I think that, between the agency's expertise and us learning as we go, we're doing an okay job of covering the bases there. The problem is we still don't know what's going to get them back. We don't know why they're not coming back, and we don't necessarily know who's not coming back. And I was kind of talking to Dr. Garrett about that a little bit, because based on the two presentations I saw today, it seems like the academic programs, maybe the transfer programs and the programs that dual credit students are doing, are really not declining as much. So I'm wondering if it's more the CTE programs. And I think honestly that would make a lot of sense, because if you look at the research on who is not going back to school nationally, it is people of color, low-income people, single parents, people who are struggling. And they are also the most likely people to enroll in the CTE courses. So I think I want to have some conversations about that, because we're in the process right now of doing ads that will support the October start date, but right behind that is spring. So, I think we have a handle on where we want to put our message. We just need to really look at what we want to say and what's going to be the most effective message. So, and how is that, Freddie? 14 slides fast? Okay.
Thank you, Barbara. And as you can see, there are a lot of people involved and a lot of people concerned about enrollment trends, numbers, and it crosses over every department, academic and non-academic. And I just want to say that in comparing what we have found out and what we've learned over the past and shared this past weekend with some of the other colleges, universities, we're all in the same boat. They're having the same struggles we're having, and what we're finding out is, and the reason for the difference between us and the university system, which our elected officials don't seem to understand, is those folks at the major universities are turning away students every year. So they set their standards, let's say at a 12 or 13 on the ACT test to let students attend, and so they're turning away probably 30,000 students a year at those major universities. So they just lower their standard. When the students slow down, they lower the standard back down to 10, and they can fill their 50,000 seats, and those are full-time, and the legislature pays for it. We have to earn ours. And one of the things I think that we've all learned over the last couple of months is that what we're learning is it's not the dollars to pay tuition necessarily that's keeping students away. It's all those other things that Barbara mentioned, which are personal life kinds of things. And I think we found that out, and we shared that with other colleges this weekend. They're having the same problem, and that's what they're finding out. It's not so much the tuition, but the fact that, Johnny can't pay the $250 to get his car out of the shop so he can go to class, or he's worried about his job or his wife's job, worried about the kids and what they can do, or the COVID problems at school. And so they're kind of just staying back and laying off. Our students are work students primarily, Thank goodness for early college, high school, and dual credit and the STEM program, because those are real students, and those are students that would come to school. Our working students are the ones who are our mainstay that we try to reach out to, but they're having their issues, and so they're staying home. And so until that turns around, and I guess probably until we get this inoculation thing under control, and the CDC and the WHO and everybody else figure out what's going on and put out the right messages, we're gonna see this downturn. But I'm pleased to see that we're not any further down than any of the other colleges and universities. We're about the same. So.
Yeah, with marketing, you can definitely make people aware, but if there's not demand, it's very difficult to create demand with marketing.
I believe it's important to figure out why students are not coming back, but maybe there's a group that hasn't been vetted very well, and that is students who have come back. Find out why. Why did they make that choice? There may be some connection for us. But thank you. Thank you, Barbara. Appreciate the info. Dr. Carter?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to give you an update on the Europe Drivers Training Contract. It's a contract that we've held for the past 11 years through multiple iterations, in which we provide the Train the Trainer course, which is designed to provide master drivers, instructors at a particular unit with fundamental training and instruction so that that individual can go back and teach their fellow drivers and operators. We also provide this service to our allied countries send students there as well. We provide this training in Vilseck, Germany at the Combined Arms Training Center. Well, the contract is set to terminate on September 30th of this month, September 30th. And it was a 3-year contract. On July 15th, the government issued a solicitation for a follow-on 3-year contract. As you've heard Ted and Mr. Liberty and myself say multiple times, we are pricing our contracts now to stand alone. In previous years, we used economies of scale over there in Europe. You'll recall that, Mr. Vivi. And we were able to do that and still make money. However, with the reduction in force over there and some changes that have been made over the years in the Europe campus, the government is not ordering what they once did in the last 10 years. So their demand has significantly gone down, but it doesn't mean that we don't require instructors to run the program. So the net effect to us has been a bottom line that's red over there in Europe, and you've seen that on the financial statements. Well, like I said, on July 15th, the government issued a solicitation for the follow-on contract. We bid that contract standalone for the reasons that I just stated. So this contract would pay for itself. It would cover all the expenses. Should the government order all of the estimated quantities in the solicitation, which we have no control over, so we use best estimates in terms of the number of instructors, et cetera. Well, midway through the process, the government issued an amendment and then a second amendment. The second amendment significantly reduced by approximately 75% the estimated quantities of the courses they wanted CTC to teach. We were able to reduce our instructor number. However, we had to leave at least 2 full-time instructors to cover even the minimal number of courses being requested. We submitted a revised price proposal and waited for the government to respond. In the next communication we received, Mr. Gonzalez received a notice from the contracting office stating that they had actually canceled the requirement. So after 11 years, the driver's training course contract will end on September 30th. We do not understand. We do not know why they've canceled it. We do understand why the demand has decreased. Pure speculation. It was all about the time we pulled out of Afghanistan. And so, we're often casualties of what's going on in the world. And so that makes our second contract this year. That's terminating over there in Europe. You remember that the CENTCOM contract ended on July 30th. So we're no longer in the Middle East and Africa. This contract ends September 30th, as I said. That leaves the small arms maintenance contract, which we have 2 more option periods. And I'll tell you, we were on pins and needles wondering whether or not they were even going to issue the modification to exercise the first option. You're on that contract. Fortunately, they did. Mr. Gonzalez received that last Friday, I believe it was, Thursday or Friday. So we're in business with the small arms maintenance contract for at least another year, because those are options. The government has the discretion to either exercise or not. Our Europe VOTEC contract is scheduled to terminate in 2023, in 2 more years. And so we are watching that closely. We've had some really good meetings with the COR, and Dean Kindred and his folks are trying to get some intel and determine what the government is going to do. That was a 10-year contract. I doubt there will be a 10-year follow-on contract, but hopefully there will be some semblance of education requirement as a follow-on. And that's kind of where we are in Europe. So we just wanted to let you know that we have another contract terminating, and that significantly changes the landscape, continues to change the landscape in Europe. Any questions?
Any questions, Dr. Carter?
Yeah, I wanted to. Is it too much to ask to, and you may already give us this information, but direct me to it, is a list of the contracts that we have and the date of their termination?
Yes.
Is it possible, just the educational ones, I don't need.
Absolutely.
Okay,
I
great.
did that a few years ago,
Okay.
and we can absolutely do it again. Actually, I'll have Mr. Gonzalez
Okay.
come before you next month to let you
And
know.
it may
what we
not
have.
even be something that you have to present in a formal way. You can, if it's just in a document.
Sure.
Because when we're looking at the budget, that will be helpful in making some decisions for me personally.
Absolutely. And this year, when we started building the budget, now that you mentioned that, when we started building the budget, obviously both CITCOM and the driver's training contract were in that budget in the spring. And so midway through the budget process, CITCOM was pulled. As you all were approving the budget and preparing to approve it, the driver's training contract was in the budget. And so now, with the cancellation of the requirement, there's only 1 month of operations in this fiscal year's budget for the driver's training contract, and that's the month of September. So absolutely, Mr. Gonzalez, he maintains a running list of contracts and activities, so we can absolutely include that in your next packet.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else? Thank you, Dr. Carter.
Thank you.
Mr. Hickman?
Hello, Chancellor and members of the board. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes. All righty. Well, my first item is the Title IX summary report for the third reporting period of June 1st through August 31st. And this is a pretty easy one. We had no Title IX issues, no Title IX cases that need to be investigated. So very simple. We're doing a fantastic job with the Title IX. So are there any questions about the Title IX summary?
No, sir, but congratulate you on your work. That's an important area we need to be cognizant of. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Safety report.
Okay, my next item is the Safety and Security Audit Report. As you're aware, every 3 years, every Texas State College has to conduct a full-scale safety and security audit and then provide the report to the Texas School Safety Center. So this is our year for it, and we were notified by the Texas School Safety Center in April that we were going to have to do this, and we began collecting information at that time. And y'all should have a copy of the report. I believe it was given to you for your read ahead. We really began in earnest in May, diving deep into it, and spent 4 months really getting deep into it, collecting all the information. There were 10 separate sections that we were required to look at, and close to 1,000 different data points in these 10 sections. And so we dug in everything that were required. All that also included surveys and information from staff and students and faculty, as well as a plethora of information from the different departments such as the campus police and information technology, facilities, business services, legal, human resources, and more. This was really a monumental team effort in this, and I collected all the information for all this and ended up writing the report, which was given to the chancellor, who approved it and signed it. And the bottom line of this entire thing is that CTC is a very safe and secure place for the faculty, staff, and students. We've made great strides even over the last one just 3 years ago, and we're using this also to build even more safety and security measures so that we can continue to improve on our stance for everybody here. I think we did a fantastic job on this, and we're definitely in good position for all staff and students and faculty to come here and have a very safe and secure environment to learn in.
Any questions from any board member? Mr. Hickman?
Thank you, Mr. Hickman. It's a great write, and you covered everything on this campus and more. And for those of you board members who have not read this, I think it reads very well, and I think you'd be very proud of it. So, again, thank you, Mr. Hickman, for your work.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mr. Minneapolis, you have something about the Appraisal District Board.
Yes, sir. Once again, here we are. The years are flying by. Coryell County Appraisal District sent me a letter looking for a member to serve 2-year terms beginning January 1 of the even-numbered years, so it's on our agenda. We are looking for a nominee to represent us with the Coryell County Tax Appraisal District, and they presented 5 board members who we could choose, or I guess we could elect our own, but the members who are currently as directors are Justin Carruthers, Brady Diaz, Inez Faison, Teresa Johnson, and Jay Manning. And so it's the pleasure of the board as to which direction they would like to go. We have a hand.
Yeah, I live in Coryell County. I looked at our list, and these are all good people. I wanted to nominate one person on here, but she's stepping down as mayor in like less than 2 months from Coppers Cove as Brady. She won't let, so I wanna bring a new name on here and nominate her to represent the Coryell County Board, and it would be Diane Yoho Campbell.
Okay.
And she's a councilwoman on Coppers Cove City Council.
Okay, thank you. And I know Diane, and we will certainly reach out to her and ask her if she was willing to serve, which I think she will. But if there are any other recommendations? No? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Yiannopoulos, are any of these items today requiring action next week?
Next week, nothing I can see on here that requires,
Yeah, this one will.
oh, this one would, yes. This tax appraisal would require. We'll need a vote next week. Right?
I'm sorry, Debbie, I'm not hearing what you're saying.
I can't hear you, Debbie. Yeah,
Okay.
right.
All right, time for our recommendations on any topics for upcoming agenda items. Ms. Coley?
No.
No, sir.
I have none. Mr. Armstrong, have anything to add?
No, thank you.
There's no need for an executive session that I know of today.
No, sir.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.